Welcome to the Market Mindset. We are the hub for news, results, and CEO interviews focusing the junior commodities sector. We provide market analysis and perspective that will help position you for solid returns. If that sounds like something you're interested in, you can help support us by liking this video, subscribing to our channel, and clicking the notification bell. For more info, you can visit our website. All links are in the description below. Now let's get into today's video.
Happy Wednesday, everyone. Austin, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Andrew. How about yourself?
Doing great, doing well. Welcome to the show. We don't have a Red Cloud event today as there is the Silver Summit. So if you're interested in some silver companies, take a look. You can reach out to us as well, but if you go to their site, you can log in. It's a full day event. Silver companies presenting and talking about the opportunities in silver. And just for curiosity's sake, silver is important not only because of the whole fiat currency issues, but it's a key component in solar panels. And when we're talking about this energy change and everything else, solar panels will play a massive role, as well as offshore and onshore wind farms. But today, and on the Market Mindset, what we try to do is to inform people of the big news, the big macro shifts, but also, some of the companies that are really leading the way and changing the world for a better place, but also have huge potential for asymmetric gains. So that's what we focus on. But today we wanted to focus a bit more on the whole chip issues, the situation we're in, not only because Pelosi went off on her site tour of her and her husband's investment in Taiwan, but to look at the good news that came out after that as well, because there is some good news. We like to point out the good as well as the bad.
Well, that's what we said. We will poke fun of and tease the powers that be for doing things at a somewhat idiotic level sometimes, but we'll also give them a pat on the back when they do something right. And I think this Chips and Science Act that the president just signed yesterday is actually a good move. I think it's something that they need to do. The last time that we had a discussion about microchips and semiconductors, we said, hey, this is something that North American countries need to start doing at home. They really need to kind of boost the economic drivers to get this going and get this kind of production over the line. Otherwise, we're going to be dependent on foreign countries and sometimes foreign adversaries for these products. So I think this is a great move. $280 billion between the actual investment and the sort of incentive-based side of things. And I think it's a really encouraging move. I think it's the right thing to do. It's obviously something that's going to be critically necessary moving forward. So we'll give them a shout out for doing something right.
Yeah, and I mean, this one isn't political because it was kind of supported bipartisan support from both from pretty much everyone. I'm not a huge fan of governments like investing and spending money necessarily. I mean, but I'll take it as a good thing because it's focusing on an industry that is critical and they need to do, and we need to see more innovation and more manufacturing out of the West. The dependency on China has got to stop. Doesn't mean we have to have negative relations with them, not at all. I mean, there should be trade and we should continue working with them on things we can, certainly not pharmaceuticals, but we'll leave that alone. Now, part of this hopefully will mean that, not to stray off to the pharmaceutical, but that is another area where the U.S. has to step up and start manufacturing for themselves. I think it's 80 or 90% of all manufacturing of pharmaceuticals is done in China, and that has to stop. But this act is great. This CHIPS Act is great for what it does. It'll bring a lot of jobs, and they're more technical jobs. They're higher paying jobs, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. And right now, I mean, you can see the obvious issue with Taiwan being right beside China and that political issue, which we don't need to get into. It's obvious that you'd know that with them being a dominant player, Taiwanese semiconductors, you need to either have them build a lot more plants on the U.S. Side of things, or you have to really, really, be careful with that relationship between China and Taiwan as well.
Yeah, it's something that you have to kind of tiptoe around, and like you mentioned Nancy Pelosi's little checkup on her investment over there, but and then she came back and made this point of the U.S. still supports the one China policy, and they're sending a lot of mixed messages around the Taiwan thing anyway, so that'll be an interesting thing to kind of pay attention to on the side. But that's not the focus of what we're talking about. And the key kind of focus of what I wanted to bring up here was the earmark of the bill kind of has $170 billion for the scientific research of advancement of their chip production. So it's not just creating the chips that we need for, obviously, we talked about it before, but there's a shortage of getting PlayStation 5s last year because Sony didn't have access to the chips that they needed. There's shortage of getting certain Intel had a big supply chain crunch and wasn't able to produce to meet the demand for computers that they were trying to get out to the public. So those chips are one side of things, but this $170 billion in scientific research is actually going to go to a more advanced kind of style of chips. Now, these would be chips that you would need for bigger things. Think like a Tesla, or one example that I was reading about this morning is a Javelin missile. One of the U.S.'s kind of top tier military equipment. They actually have no capacity to make the chips that those military weapons need. So now that's something that they're trying to advance as well, and be able to increase their production capacity and their ability to make those chips.
Absolutely. And that's where the rare earth discussion that pops its head up every once in a while comes in as well, because China completely dominates that market. And whether it is, the neodymium, I never say that one correctly, but it's used in magnets. So the magnets in Teslas and electric cars, you need a rare earth metal produced from that used in the magnets. Also, they're used in all the GPS and weaponry and systems like the Javelins and other missiles, as well as rockets. It kind of ties in that critical need for a lot of these critical elements. And fortunately, we're seeing not as much the wording in this CHIPS Act, although they talk about nanotech, they talk about clean energy, quantum computing, artificial intelligence, all these great things, all this Internet of Things, and that does tie into this electric future and batteries and everything else. It's good. I mean, that's the investment you want to see, and I don't think there would have been too much hearkening or arguing back and forth, which is why it went through fairly quickly, even though it's another big chunk of billions being printed out to be done. At least it doesn't have all the other social stuff, and it's not a woke bill like all the other stuff.
The Chips and Diversity Act.
Yes, where all of a sudden 75% of it's into social programs that you can never figure out where the money go. Now, just to be devil's advocate, what I don't like about this is that what they're doing is they're printing money, so they're creating inflation again. In this case, you'd say, well, that's fine. They're investing in the country, which is good. But I would rather give that to the people to let them be able to help to choose where they want to fund and encourage them. But right now, as it stands, is that you're basically saying, we're going to take your future, the future growth of the country. We're going to take it from you in taxes. We're going to take it in a lot of different ways. And then the government itself will also make the investments. So you will have no say in it either. And you'll also not have any of the upside. So, you'll get to use the stuff. You'll get to buy it.
No.
And, that's my only argument.
Get taxed on that too.
Yes, get taxed on that. That's my only argument with it, is that I would much prefer that you actually raise the people up, get them excited, and have them have the ability to have a few extra bucks to start investing for themselves, to throw $2,000 at something, into a solar panel company or into a nanotech play. I would rather see that, because that spreads the opportunity around to the people. I mean, and if you're supposed to be the People's Party, that would be an awfully nice thing to do. And that's, maybe that's very naive and utopian in and of itself, but let's take this as a win, because it really is. It's a very clean bill, which once again, you don't see very often. And it is critical to see. We've talked about like Taiwanese semiconductor, because they're going to be in Arizona. I think it's 2025 that they have a plant that's being built out there, but they're not alone. I mean, Intel has, I think, 4 plants stated or slated. One just went up in Arizona, in Chandler. And I think
there's another one in Ohio, I believe.
Yes,
expected to be
yes,
completed by the end of the year. Yeah.
yes. And then there looks like there's another one in Santa Clara in 2024, 25 as well from Intel, which is an Israeli company, which at least U.S. and Israel have outstanding relations. So it's not necessarily an American company, neither is Taiwanese Semiconductor, but they are certainly friends. And I think getting manufacturing back, maybe not on everything, like you don't need to have Coke or T-shirts maybe manufactured again, is getting some of these critical things. That is absolutely necessary. And it's good without making a big kerfuffle politically or about China or anything else. It's good to see usually it would be a Republican thing to want to do this, to see the Democrats being very open and saying, listen, let's invest in the people and let's get some jobs. I think it's 600,000 jobs they're hoping to create with this. So it's a good thing. It's a really good thing.
Yeah, it definitely is. And, it's cool to see. And it's something that I hope lessons can be learned from. And maybe that's a bit of wishful thinking, but whatever, we'll take it for what it is. Seeing instantly some major companies jump in on this as well. Like Micron said they're right. They came out, I think within a few hours of the bill being signed, saying, hey, we're going to invest another $40 billion into U.S. chip manufacturing. They're expecting that investment to create up to 40,000 jobs, including 5,000 high-paying jobs within the company as well. So that's encouraging. We saw Qualcomm and Global Foundries both doubled down on their chip production. Again, that was within about 24 hours of this being signed. Nvidia booked another almost 1.5 billion in inventory to kind of push along with this as well. So the big companies are answering kind of to this investment opportunity, and that's something that I hope makes an example that you can say, all right, well, like, let's apply this to somewhere else. And obviously for us, I'm going to take that in a mining direction and in a commodities direction, and say, hey, when you open a level of investment and incentive to these companies, they are going to take advantage of that. You just have to give them the tools to be able to do that. So I think that's a lesson that can be and hopefully will be learned out of this as well.
And it's interesting too, because I mean, the chip makers are down today again. Nvidia is down a little bit because of bad news. Well, it had a bad quarter. Well, of course it did. They shut the world down for 2 years. So, we knew that there was a chip shortage. But what's great is you see these actions by the chip makers, although it's not reflected in the stock price today, is that it bodes well for the future. And remember, if you're a president of a company or CEO, or if you're even a fund, you're not really, and unless you're specifically a day trading fund, you're not really worried about specifically today. I mean, you have mark to market, but you're looking at down the road, and big investments, it's down the road. You're building a plant that's, $50 billion, $30 billion, or $2 billion. I mean, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of money. So their time frame is a little bit different. So it's excellent news, I think, to see that the long-term shift, if you're really black-pilled on the U.S. is losing its foothold in the world. It's falling back. It's really, and one could still argue that that's the case, but it's not down and out. To see this and to see the push for critical metals, which they've mentioned in other press releases and news and big investment infrastructure investments, they're acknowledging the critical metals finally, which is important. And we're going to need anywhere from 4 to 10 times the amount of metal. We're talk about that in our separate report that we're still working on, this energy realism report that's coming out. But this is good news. This is very good news. And just actually on top of that, and this isn't data or anything, but I stretch the imagination. But I do have a friend that lives in Australia who worked at Goldman Sachs for years, and he was like, Andrew, they're pumped over here. Like, things are looking good. Now, for me, it was like, really? Because, I mean, in Vancouver, it just seems like it's the end of the world. Like, everyone's depressed. It's not, everyone's worried about the markets. Most of the news in the market is not flattering. It's a lot of doom and gloom. And he was like, no. All the battery energy people, the mining, this green sector, it's just lit. And he was excited. So that's interesting to see a country that's embraced that it's a resource country, is it's acknowledging that this is happening. And I think that that's the case that we want to make out to people too, is that there's still pain ahead for sure. Like it's not going to be easy sailing, clear sailing, but at least this shows a commitment to getting there on the computer side. And I think hopefully in the next months, give or take who's in charge of power, you're going to see an acknowledgement that we have to get these metals and mining, and we need to make some sort of investment in that as well. Otherwise, it's just, it really is smoke and mirrors. You're just pretending at that point, because it requires so much metals and mining to be able to do any of this, to pull it off, that it is incredible. And it'll be, as we said before, a little mix of all of it.
Yeah, and that's a great kind of segue here. And I had a little piece that we put on our message board yesterday. So if you're not signed up for that, you probably should be, because we get some good reports and analysis and stuff on there. But to tie it into Australia, you said that your friend was speaking about how jazzed up kind of Australia is and really leaning into this push. They had a diggers and dealers mining forum, which was down in Australia a couple weeks ago. And they kind of estimated and projected that some of the deals and projects and stuff that were finalized, that will estimate to about 42 billion worth of investment in Australia's mining sector. Australia is doing a lot to kind of combat the surge in demand for lithium. I believe Australia is also increasing their production on cobalt and stuff like that as well. So it's encouraging to see a country that does lean into that, and then response to U.S. kind of says, hey, let's lean into this chips thing, and then boom, you see that investment fall behind it as well. So if you just kind of get these stories out there and can get the excitement and give the government the incentive to want to make this stuff happen, if that's what the people want to see, then there's great opportunity to really grow these industries.
I think that's the big message, is that just because we're not hearing about it in Canada, you have to remember we've got it's government sponsored news. I mean, that's what it is. I know people don't like to hear that, but that's exactly what we have here. And they may never want to admit, especially this government, they may not want to admit the amount of metals and mining we need. And for whatever reason, I don't know. I don't want to read their minds, but it's a reality. And it's important to see other countries are waking up to this. And we are sitting on huge potential here in Canada. I mean, it's the amount of resources we have, and once again, we can do them clean. I mean, we can. We can have all electric mines. We've shown that we can. There's all sorts of really cool things we can do. So it just takes people to expect a lot, to say, listen, if we're going to do this, I expect it to be done with the climate in mind, to safety standards for the people, as well as to the environment. And it can be. It just simply can, regardless of what any environmentalist says. It can, and that's exciting, because you'll get the solutions that you want. You'll get the story that you believe. You'll get it, but you'll also be able to participate in a market that has been beaten up for decades, and it is cyclical. And when it takes off, it takes off. So, I'm not saying that happens tomorrow, but we are sitting at a time when things are looking, bleak and gloomy. And it doesn't mean that the markets are going to be great. When I say that, I mean, like, the NASDAQ will be at highs or this or that. We don't talk about the markets necessarily that much, but I'm holding strong in that there's going to be a lot of great winners, a lot of great opportunity, and we feel very confident moving forward.
Yeah, it's very encouraging. It's awesome to kind of see this trending in the right direction, and hopefully it continues that way, because we're going to need it. That's all you can say, is we're going to need continued investment and continued growth if we're going to hit any of these targets and goals that they have in mind.
Yeah, and let's get people back to work. I mean, 600,000 jobs in high tech. That's awesome. Like, let's get going. That's the kind of good news that people want to hear, and that can get people over. Now, granted, we're going into October with midterms, and that'll get a little feisty again. But if we can get people less on the divisive stuff and more on, let's focus on all this cool stuff that we can be investing in for the West, that's a good thing. Now, believe me, I'm not being delusional. There's a lot of problems with the whole, kind of extreme leftist woke stuff, but that stuff will play itself out. That's not a battle that we have to necessarily talk too much about on here, but let's just focus on where there's opportunity to make money. And that's where it's going to be.
Yep, you're absolutely right. That's it's a great opportunity, and it's something that we hope we'll continue get to talk about stories like this, and given the government pats on the back for doing stuff like this, because it's completely necessary.
Yeah, I mean, I wish Canada would do something. Let's step up and meet that challenge, and not throw money around where it's kind of what have we got for that? What kind of return did we get with our basically selling our future, just selling your kids' future? So I'd rather see it if we're gonna print all this money and we're gonna sell another generation's affordability of housing or lifestyle, then it's towards huge opportunity where they might be able to invest in it as well as it's building and growing, and then that's how you build a strong country. So anyways, there's a good opportunity here. We were going to jump into a little bit about the energy thing, but listen, we're still working on this energy realism report. It's a lot. It's big. There's a lot going on there. So we'll leave that out for now and just focus on this, because it all ties together. The electric, the chips, the Internet of Things, blockchain, all this ties together. And I think a lot of people are starting to see it, and it's raveling, coming together, but it all does come together. And we're not through the tough times yet, but I think if you can start to piece all of it together and see where it could be, if you think long-term out, you could be setting yourself up for big wins.
Yeah, absolutely. The opportunities that are out there are truly limitless. And I use that kind of phrase a little loosely, but there's a great potential out there. So hoping to continue to see stuff like this trending in the right direction. But thanks as always, Andrew. It's been awesome. It's great to be back with you on a Wednesday, taking a break from digging deeper. So it's always good to be on a Wednesday, and we'll look forward to chatting to everyone again on Friday.
Excellent. Enjoy the midweek, guys. Take care.
Cheers.